Tonight, we are witnessing the beginning of what military historians may one day call the most dangerous 72 hours in modern history. Iran has officially declared war against the United States of America. They have blocked the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which 20% of the world's oil supply flows, every single day. And they have launched 40 hypersonic missiles directly at United States naval vessels operating in the Persian Gulf. This is not a drill. This is not a miscalculation. This is not a proxy skirmish. This is war, the kind of war that Pentagon planners have gamed out for decades, the kind of war that diplomats have worked tirelessly to prevent. The kind of war that once started, nobody knows how to stop. What Tehran did in the last 6 hours has crossed every red line, shattered every assumption, and forced Washington into a position where restraint is no longer possible. And as fires burn on American warships in the Gulf, one question dominates every situation room from Washington to Jerusalem to Riyadh: what comes next? For weeks now, there had been warnings not from official channels, not from public statements, just warnings that Iran's Revolutionary Guard was preparing something catastrophic. Iran has been aggressive before, yes, but they have always been calculated in their aggression. Their provocations have followed a certain logic, a pattern, almost a rhythm: harassing commercial vessels, seizing tankers, launching drones at Saudi oil facilities, firing rockets through proxies. But what set off alarm bells in Washington 3 weeks ago was that the pattern changed, the harassment stopped, the proxy attacks slowed, the rhetoric went quiet. Intelligence officers who monitor Iranian military activity know the indicators: the sudden repositioning of fast attack boats, the movement of mobile missile launchers to coastal positions, the activation of radar systems that had been dormant for months, the unusual communications blackout among naval units. All of that happened in the last 3 weeks. And whenever Iran goes quiet while simultaneously repositioning assets, it means something massive is being planned. American intelligence detected the preparations. They warned the fleet. They increased readiness levels. But nobody, not the Pentagon, not the CIA, not CENTCOM, expected Iran to actually do what they did today, because what Iran did today was suicidal, or so it seemed. At approximately 0347 hours local time, United States Central Command detected what they initially classified as a massive inbound threat: multiple projectiles launched from at least 7 locations across Iran's southern coastline. These were not the ballistic missiles Iran has used before. These were not the slow, detectable, interceptable weapons American defenses were designed to counter. These were hypersonic missiles, weapons traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 8, weapons capable of maneuvering during flight, weapons that American defense systems have never been tested against in combat conditions. 40 of them, launched simultaneously, targeting the USS Eisenhower carrier strike group operating in the Gulf of Oman. Within seconds, every alarm on every American vessel in the region was screaming. The cruiser USS Philippine Sea detected the incoming threats first, then the destroyers, then the carrier itself. SM-6 missiles began launching from vertical cells across the fleet. CIWS systems spun up to maximum speed. Electronic warfare systems activated. But hypersonic missiles don't behave like anything American sailors have faced before. They don't follow predictable trajectories. They don't give you time to react. They arrive before you fully understand they've been launched, and tonight they arrived. The first impact hit the destroyer USS Gravely at 0351 hours, then the cruiser USS Philippine Sea, then, catastrophically, the flight deck of the USS Eisenhower itself. Initial reports indicate that American missile defenses intercepted between 15 and 20 of the incoming weapons, but 15 to 20 is not 40. And the missiles that got through caused devastation that the United States Navy has not experienced since World War II. The USS Gravely is reportedly sinking. The Philippine Sea has lost power and is on fire. The Eisenhower, a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, one of only 11 in the entire United States Navy, is damaged severely enough that flight operations have ceased. Casualty reports are still coming in, but sources speaking to defense journalists suggest that American deaths tonight number in the hundreds, possibly more. Within minutes of the attack, the Pentagon moved to DEFCON, to a level of readiness not seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Biden was awakened and taken to the situation room. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs convened an emergency meeting, and the United States began preparing its response. As the scale of the attack became clear, additional reports emerged about the second phase of Iran's operation. Simultaneously with the missile launch, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy began executing what appears to be a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Fast attack boats, dozens of them deployed across the 21-mile-wide passage, sea mines the exact type American intelligence has long feared were dropped at choke points throughout the strait. Anti-ship missile batteries on Iranian islands in the Gulf activated and began targeting any vessel attempting transit. And the Iranian military issued a statement that left no room for interpretation. Any vessel, military or commercial, American or allied, that attempts to transit the Strait of Hormuz will be destroyed. The era of American domination of our waters is over. This waterway now belongs to the Islamic Republic. That statement was followed within the hour by a formal declaration of war. Iran's supreme leader appeared on state television and announced that the Islamic Republic was now in a state of holy war with the United States. He blamed American aggression. He blamed Israeli terrorism. He blamed decades of sanctions and sabotage. And he announced that Iran would fight until victory or martyrdom. Those are not the words of a leader seeking negotiation. Those are the words of a leader who has decided that war is inevitable and has chosen to strike first. And here's where the story becomes even more alarming. Intelligence analysts now believe that Iran's attack was designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities in American naval defenses, vulnerabilities that Iran could only have known about through sophisticated intelligence collection. The attack targeted the carrier strike group at its most exposed position. The missile launch was timed to coincide with a gap in satellite coverage. The specific vessels hit were those with the most critical command and control functions. This was not a desperate gamble. This was a meticulously planned first strike. Iran knew exactly what they were doing, and that raises terrifying questions about how they knew. Did they have intelligence penetration of CENTCOM planning? Did they receive targeting data from a foreign power? Did they hack American naval communications? Those questions will be investigated for years, but tonight they are secondary to the immediate crisis, because the Strait of Hormuz is now closed and 20% of the world's oil supply just stopped flowing. Within hours of Iran's announcement, oil futures spiked by 40%, stock markets in Asia crashed. The global economy, already fragile, began experiencing shock waves that will take months to fully manifest. This is not just a military crisis. This is an economic catastrophe unfolding in real time. As reports continued coming in throughout the night, we learned more about the scale of the situation. The USS Eisenhower has been hit by at least 2 hypersonic missiles, with fires still burning in the hangar bay. Air operations have ceased entirely. The USS Gravely has capsized, with rescue operations underway for crew members still in the water. At least 6 commercial tankers in the Gulf have been seized by ERG naval forces and are being escorted to Iranian ports. Iran's Air Force has scrambled every operational aircraft, establishing combat air patrols over the entire Gulf region. Hezbollah in Lebanon has announced it is prepared to join the holy war, raising the specter of a second front opening against Israel. The Houthis in Yemen have declared they will attack any American vessel. In the Red Sea, a third potential front. This wasn't just an attack. This wasn't just a provocation. This was the opening move of a coordinated regional war. This was Iran activating its entire axis of resistance, and the United States, for the first time since 1945, has lost a major surface combatant in battle. The psychological impact of that cannot be overstated. American naval supremacy has been unchallenged for 80 years. Tonight, that era of unchallenged dominance ended. Remember, Iran believed several things that turned out to be catastrophically true. They believed their hypersonic missiles could penetrate American defenses. They were right. They believed the United States would not preemptively strike despite warning signs. They were right. They believed they could close the Strait of Hormuz before America could stop them. They were right. They believed that striking first, striking hard, and striking everywhere would paralyze American decision-making. On that, the jury is still out, because the United States now faces a decision unlike any since the Second World War. How do you respond to an attack that killed hundreds of American sailors, sank American warships, and closed the world's most important oil choke point? Proportional response is no longer possible. Diplomatic solutions are no longer relevant. De-escalation is no longer an option. The only question remaining is, how far will this go? What makes this moment so dangerous and so unpredictable is that both leaders are now under immense pressure with no room for compromise. Iran's supreme leader has staked his legacy on this war. Iranian hardliners have wanted this confrontation for 40 years. The URG has spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. The Iranian population has been told this is their destiny. There is no off-ramp for Tehran, they have committed fully. Meanwhile, President Biden faces pressure from every direction. Military commanders want immediate, overwhelming retaliation. Congressional hawks are demanding a declaration of war. The American public wants revenge for dead sailors. Allies are looking to Washington for leadership. The president cannot show weakness. He cannot accept what happened. He cannot allow the strait to remain closed. He cannot let American blood go unanswered. When leaders on both sides have no room for de-escalation, the only direction is up. The Pentagon's initial statement, released 90 minutes after the attack, was unlike anything we've seen in modern American military communications. It described Irani's action as an act of war that will be met with decisive force. It confirmed American casualties but did not provide numbers. It announced that all American military forces worldwide had been placed on maximum alert, and it contained a single sentence that should concern everyone: the United States reserves the right to respond with all means at its disposal. That phrase, all means at its disposal, is nuclear language. It is the kind of language that American officials use when they want adversaries to understand that no options are off the table. You do not hear that phrase in routine statements. You hear it when the United States is preparing for total war. President Biden addressed the nation from the Oval Office at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. His face was grim. His voice was steady. His words were measured but unmistakable. He said, "Tonight, the Islamic Republic of Iran committed an act of war against the United States of America. American sailors are dead, American warships have been attacked, and the free flow of commerce through international waters has been illegally blocked." He said, "Iran's leaders have made a catastrophic miscalculation. They believe America is weak. They believe we will not respond. They are wrong." And he said, "In the coming hours and days, the full power of the United States military will be brought to bear. We did not seek this war, but we will finish it." These are not diplomatic words. These are not words of restraint. These are the words of a commander-in-chief preparing to unleash American military power at a scale not seen in decades. Here's what makes the situation even more dangerous. Iran's attack was not isolated. Within hours, Hezbollah launched over 200 rockets at northern Israel, overwhelming Iron Dome. In several locations, Houthi forces in Yemen fired anti-ship missiles at American vessels in the Red Sea. Pro-Iranian militias in Iraq launched drone attacks on American bases in Syria's Leaper cells. Across the Middle East received activation orders. All of this happened within the same 12-hour window. This is not a single-front war. This is a regional conflagration designed to stretch American forces across multiple theaters simultaneously. Iran is not fighting alone, and America cannot respond to every threat at once. Military analysts are now considering several possibilities for America's response. One is a massive air campaign targeting every Iranian military facility, air bases, missile sites, naval bases, command centers. This would take days and would not immediately reopen the strait. Another is a focused strike on Iranian leadership, an attempt to decapitate the regime and force chaos in Tehran. This carries enormous escalation risk. A third possibility, the one concerning officials most, is a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. If America is going to war anyway, some argue, now is the time to eliminate Iran's nuclear program permanently. But that option risks drawing in Russia, which has defense agreements with Tehran, and it risks Iranian retaliation against Israel with whatever weapons Iran may already possess. There are no good options, only less bad ones. What we're watching now is a test of everything. American military power is being tested in combat against advanced weapons. American alliances are being tested as partners decide whether to join the fight. American leadership is being tested as the world watches for Washington's response. And the entire post-World War II international order is being tested by a regional power that decided the rules no longer apply. Tonight, we've received reports that American B-2 bombers have taken off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Additional carrier strike groups have been ordered to the region. American submarines in the Gulf have received authorization to engage Iranian naval vessels, and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced that Israel stands with America and will respond to any attack on Israeli territory with overwhelming force. The pieces are moving, the forces are positioning, and the world is holding its breath. Iran's message was clear: the American era in the Middle East is over. America's response will be equally clear: it is not. As dawn breaks over the Persian Gulf, fires still burn on American warships. Sailors are still being pulled from the water. Families are still waiting to learn if their loved ones survived, and the leaders of two nations are preparing for a war that may reshape the world. What happens in the next 72 hours will determine the course of history. If Iran miscalculated American resolve, they will discover their error shortly. If America hesitates, adversaries around the world will be emboldened. If escalation continues unchecked, this could become the largest military conflict since Korea. There are no good outcomes anymore, only degrees of catastrophe. And tonight, for the first time since 1945, American warships burn because of enemy action. Washington is on a war footing, the Gulf is a combat zone, and Iran has bet everything, their regime, their nation, their future, on the belief that America will blink. But America does not blink, not when sailors die, not when ships sink, not when enemies believe they can strike without consequence. Iran learned something today that they may not survive. America was attacked. America will respond, and American response, when it comes, will be unlike anything they have prepared for. This story is just beginning. The first shots have been fired, and the world will never be the same. We will be here, covering every development as this crisis unfolds.